close to 200,000 people don't have access to critical care, to delivery services in their own community. They have to drive at least an hour. And the ambulance wait times or response times can get long, especially if there's different emergencies happening at the same time. So it's life or death for people. There have been some deaths as a result of people not being able to get to Fresno or to Merced as a result. That's why healthcare safety net is critical. The community health clinics are going to be a critical component of filling the gap, but we definitely need to get that hospital reopened. Yeah. I'm not going to stop working until we get that done here.
All right, hello and welcome again to another episode of Sacktown Talks. Today we're glad to be joined by Assemblywoman Esmeralda Soria. Esmeralda, thanks for joining us. How's it going?
It's great. Thank you for having me.
Hey, no worries. It's good to see the new blood here in the Capitol. For our listeners, can you kind of tell us a little bit about yourself and your district?
Yeah, no, absolutely. So I represent Assembly District 27, which is a big part of the Central Valley, 3 counties all the way from Fresno, the Calinga area, and I go north all the way up to Merced County, up till Los Baños, the Delhi area. So it's a very large district that I represent. But just a little bit of history, my kind of journey to the Assembly. I was a councilwoman for 8 years for the city of Fresno. So I was termed out when
So they have term limits at the city council.
2 terms of 4 years. And so I ended up, obviously running for this it is a newly drawn seat, after redistricting. Mm-hmm. And so prior to that, though, even prior to the council, I kind of full circle for me. I worked for a number of legislators in the Valley and then also here in Sacramento. So I worked for Assemblymember Henry Perea and then also Senator Michael Rubio. That's actually what took me back to the Valley because there's a lot of, Valley folks that go away. I went away to college.
Where'd you go to college?
I went to Berkeley undergrad and then Dave.
I've heard of that, I think.
Yeah, right?
Good school?
I think so. I think it's the number 1 public university. But then I actually came to Sacramento as a Polanco fellow. Senator Polanco, after he left the Capitol, created a program to try to help Latino students get legislative and policy experience. And so I came to Sacramento in 2006, so a year after I graduated Cal.
2006. Yeah. It was like the Schwarzenegger.
Yep. It was during that time.
Budget, two-thirds.
Yeah. Very different circumstances. I worked for a member from LA. I was with him for my year as a fellowship and then 1 additional year before going back to law school. I thought I was going to be an attorney and go out there and defend. I grew up in a rural community, farm worker family, and so I thought that I was going to go out there and do immigration law.
Right.
And then I fell in love with the lawmaking process, and so I kind of got drawn.
Did you go
back
all the way
in.
through law school?
Yeah. So I'm an attorney, and
Where'd you go to law school?
Davis. So here.
Oh, is that a pretty good school too?
Yeah, it's a pretty good school.
Yeah. So you're pretty smart then, huh?
I'd like to think so,
Wow. So we've had fellows on and you just see them. I think you have one here. You just showed up with one of your interns. Do you remember your fellowship time and kind of like your time in the Capitol and like how you thought things were then and just kind of like being a member now and just kind of like the differences and the contrast?
Yeah, it was very exciting to step foot, as a fellow in the Capitol, especially for someone like me, first gen, parents, immigrants, my mom, 9th grade education, my father, a 7th grade education. And so coming from, growing up, working in the fields with my parents and then being able to step foot in this, under the big dome where key decisions are made every single day that impact families like mine was pretty exciting.
So your parents were farm workers in the Valley. Where'd you grow up?
In Tulare County, so in Lindsay, small little farm
Dairy
worker
community,
town.
Right?
Citrus, actually, citrus. But Tulare is big with dairy, but in my area, mostly citrus. My parents, after working in the fields, they graduated and working in packing sheds. And so for me, it was exciting to be in Sacramento, learning, the importance of being at the table. What was very different, I will tell you now, coming back as a member, is that at the time there were not as many women. If we look today in the Women's Legislative Caucus, I think we make about 40% of the members, which is pretty awesome, right?
Yeah.
We're almost getting to parity, but it's taken that long to get here.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
Yeah, and a bunch of Latino members as well, right?
As well. Yeah, and I remember being part of staffing my member at the time for the Latino caucus, and it was a smaller caucus, and now it's a huge caucus.
Yeah.
It's, I think, one of the biggest caucus.
It's kind of interesting. I guess, over last week, we just had the speaker change, and I saw Matt Haney post this video of you guys singing "Oh Happy Day" in the back. Or you were one of his background singers, I think.
I know, it just kind
Great voice. Can you kind of talk about that? Why was it such a happy day? What does this change mean to you?
I believe it's an exciting time for someone that comes from a rural part of California, having a speaker that grew up in a very similar environment to the environment that I grew up. Is exciting for me because I don't have to sit and explain to him why there are certain issues that are important to my district, and he should not just support, but also help us make sure that California leads on those issues. Yeah. And so that's what's exciting for me. I think the last time that we had someone from a rural community was Cruz Bustamante, which was back in, I think, the 90s.
Right.
And so that, for me, represented that hope.
Good knowledge there, huh?
Well, from the Valley, I got to know my Valley historical politics.
Right.
But, that's, for me, that's what it represented. And so it's an exciting time. There are incredible challenges. And I think that the speaker said it very well, right? We have some very big issues, and it shouldn't be a one size fits all. Mm-hmm. And that's what historically has happened here in Sacramento. Yeah. Urban kind of dominates.
It's kind of interesting. Like I just learned, I was talking to the Bay Area Caucus. Someone explained to me why the Bay Area Caucus was created and what it means. And there's some unwritten rule that if the speaker's from LA, the pro tem should be from San Francisco. Or if the speaker's from San Francisco, the pro tem should be LA. Kind of like the middle of California has just never been kind of in that power pool. So it's interesting having someone not from San Francisco or not from LA kind of in the driver's seat.
Yeah, no, and I think what's exciting is that his leadership really has brought folks from all over the state. In terms of my member, my colleagues, the members, really, behind him, and how he was able to get to leadership was a very broad coalition, and so that's what's exciting.
Yeah. What does a speaker mean? Like, is it like kind of like a team captain? Are you guys like electing like a boss, a leader? What does leader mean to you? What does electing a leader mean? Kind of?
I think the leader sets the tone, for the environment that we're going to work in. And to some degree, one, lead on, allow us to lead on big issues, but he is really going to set the tone that's important for leading on these big issues. Like housing is one of the issues that he mentioned, that I think there's been a lot of work done or attempted to be done, but we're still super behind in addressing the issue. And so I think he will set the tone. So to some degree too, I don't want to call it a referee, but he will also be in that position where he will have to referee because our caucus is so big, right? And so try to figure that out.
You guys now, like almost 70?
62. 62. I know. So it's a big caucus. But, I do believe that he has the ability to bring folks together, and that with the tone that he sets, we will be able to tackle some of the biggest issues that our state faces.
Right. And you guys, your districts kind of border each other?
Yeah. So, because my district goes like west, even past the 5. And so that's where our districts are connected. Right?
Yeah. So it's interesting, even though, you're coastal versus inland, you guys have a lot of the same issues, right?
A lot of the same issues. And so that's why I'm excited. Well, one of the things that I will tell you that I've shared and what has excited me about his leadership and his style is that even this first year, I'm a target, and my district has experienced some significant challenges. One, the hospital closure. And so what I appreciated about the speaker was that when we started talking about, hey, I'm working on this legislative issue, I'm trying to introduce a bill, his team and my team got together and we came up with AB 412. And for him, he saw, Esmeralda, I think that this is your issue to carry. And he never put his name on it. We worked together every step of the way,
Right.
but he wanted to make sure that I got the credit for it.
Yeah.
And sure enough, we were successful within the 150 days to get AB 112 passed, which included the language that we had shaped and crafted under AB 412.
I know that's like a big issue down in the Valley that your predecessor worked on a lot is, there's not a lot of hospitals in the area, and you represent this big geographic area, and you have this UC that's newly formed, and, it's a great spot for a medical school, right? Or to teach, new doctors and folks like that
Yep.
who could stay and kind of be in the area, just kind of like UC Davis is like a big hub here for us locally to attract talent. Kind of what's going on in that regards to kind of building a medical school so you guys can attract talent down there and kind of have hospitals that support the population.
That is a very good question. The hospital issue is like my number one priority, and then work with the workforce development. We have a significant shortage of doctors, and so one of the ideas that I and the Senator Caballero have been talking about is what a great opportunity to take what happened in Madera and see if the UC will come in and partner and create the medical education program for the students once they're in medical school. The medical school is happening at UC Merced. There was money allocated in this budget to address essentially the facility on the campus. I believe it was in the tunes of this year for $50 million for that medical education building. The first cohort, in fact, starts this fall of bachelor students. They will complete their bachelor's in 4 years and then continue with the with med school the 4 years. So that would be a total 8-year program for them. 15 students that were admitted to this new cohort of future doctors. But we will need a teaching hospital for it. And so, as you mentioned, there's UC Davis, hospital here in Sacramento connected to the UC Davis Medical School. And so similarly, we're trying to, really push on this notion of being bold and thinking right now outside the box and maybe looking for that opportunity to partner both with UC Merced and UCSF Fresno, because they already have a prime program down in the Fresno area. But we need additional slots to really expand the ability to educate our future doctors.
Yeah, because like your district's a perfect example, right? It spans a large area. Like if you get hurt in Coalinga, like where are you going?
So, just recently, a couple of weeks ago, the LA Times on the front page featured a very, very tragic story about a pregnant mom in Madera County, out in one of the rural communities, that ended up delivering her baby at home and on her couch, had to use a shoelace. It was a clean shoelace to tie the umbilical cord.
Wow.
And, you can't make this stuff up. This is happening in my district. And so that's why for me, this issue is like top. Now, close to 200,000 people don't have access to critical care, to delivery services in their own community. They have to drive at least an hour. And the ambulance, wait times or response times can get long, especially if there's different emergencies happening at the same time.
That's crazy.
Yeah. So it's life or death for people. There have been some deaths as a result of people not being able to get to Fresno or to Merced as a result.
And it's kind of like, these people need to live where they live because they, do a lot of the work out there, right?
These are communities that have existed for, 100 years. And so we have an ag-based economy. These folks work in their surrounding community. And, we can't force them to move. Plus, wherever they live, it's probably much more affordable than moving to an urban center that has the hospital. That's why healthcare safety net is critical. The community health clinics are going to be a critical component of filling the gap, but we definitely need to get that hospital reopened. And so I'm not going to stop working until we get that done here.
The top topic of every Central Valley legislator, I guess for the past 10 years, maybe not anymore, is water. Like, where are we getting water? We need more water. Stop letting the water go out to the ocean, bring it here. So it's interesting. We just had one of the drinking water folks come on and educate us about drinking water. We've had a lot of the ag water people on, and I guess, there's 3, uses for water: drinking water, farm water, environmental. It's kind of the fight between those three and how it gets split and things like that. Kind of what's the water situation like in your district, and kind of what are some of the things you're looking at?
Well, it's interesting. When I first started running and campaigning, you'd see a lot of the signs that said, let's pray for rain, right? Fast forward a few months ago, when we had these atmospheric rivers, those signs went down because it seemed like, we had gotten enough rain to get us out of the drought. But I think that as a state, we have failed to look at all the different solutions to address the issues that exist, especially for the valley. We're very reliant on water is the lifeline, right, for us, because one, we're an ag-based economy. Right. And then two, the other challenges that folks have experienced, as you mentioned, quality, water quality issues. And so over time, I feel like we've kicked the can down the road when it comes to infrastructure, when it comes to really addressing the issue as a whole. My goal, I've been trying to just even this legislative session do something small, but I think will be big in the long run. I have a proposal, which is AB 830, I believe. I don't even know the number still. There's so many bills, but this bill would allow us in years like this, districts like I'm working with Merced Irrigation District, to allow us to take some of the water and replenish the groundwater aquifer. These are things that are no-brainers that we should have been doing long ago. But because of regulations or because of the way that, our state laws are written, we were unable to do it. In fact, the governor this year during the atmospheric rivers declared, a state of emergency. As part of the state of emergency, he actually allowed some of this to happen. But we want to make sure that we don't have to declare a state of emergency, right, and communities flooding like one of my communities, Planada, where 4,000 people then are evacuated and are significantly impacted by flooding that could have been prevented. And I think that that's why I feel like the state, to some degree, has, kicked the can down the road and failed communities like the community of Planada, who didn't have to be under, I think it was, I forget how many feet of water they were under for, a few of the weeks. And so had we cleaned, these waterways and taken some of that extra flood water and recharged the aquifer, we would have mitigated flooding, and there would be the benefit of recharging the groundwater aquifer, which we are required to do under SGMA. Right. And so more of these projects need to be, done and need to be expedited. And so there's a lot of work to be done on this issue for the Valley.
Interesting. I don't know if it's still in your district, but there was a couple communities who had unsafe drinking water, and they had truck in bottled water. Is that still going on, or what's being done to kind of help these communities that have bad water?
Yeah, there's still many communities that have contaminated water, either like in the South Valley, because of kind of the dairy industry was very big, and the nitrate issue. Many families in the South Valley. That's not really in my district, but I know because I grew up in that area, right? And so we always had to buy bottled water growing up. But also communities in my area, there are other water quality issues that are not related to nitrates, but other groundwater quality issues. And so what has been done, I will tell you, actually, when I was with Assemblymember Perea, there was one thing that we did, and I think, people have been trying to kind of chip away. There's a lot of small water systems, and sometimes these small water systems can't build the water treatment plants, right, to treat the water and then provide it at safer levels. And so AB 983 was a consolidating bill where it would allow one system to consolidate with another system, and then the bigger system would get a benefit of a grant to be able to connect them. Like the city of Fresno, we did that to a neighboring the Orange School District, which was right outside the city limits, but nearby where we could build a pipeline and give them clean water. And so those are some of the things that have been done, but there's still a lot of work to do. I think with SGMA and us trying to put more water down below, that will address over time some of those issues.
Right.
But it's going to take, a long time. Obviously, didn't happen overnight. And so that's why I think
Time
above,
and money, yeah.
oh yeah, that's why I think also above ground water storage is still something that we need.
Mm-hmm. It's interesting. Last year we had the $100 billion surplus and everyone was like, okay, this is unbelievable. All these things we can do. This year we had the opposite. What do we have, like a $30 billion deficit?
Mm-hmm.
Kind of talk to us about the budget and kind of some of the things you saw in there, and is anything that's going to help your community kind of solve some of these issues you just talked about?
So, I'm very proud of the work that we've been able to do in these first 7 months and even during the budget. Yeah, you mentioned we're in a deficit in terms of the revenues, right? Mm-hmm. The revenues didn't, they're not as great as they were the previous year. And I think that's why we see a deficit. And so in the last 7 months, we've been working really hard to elevate some of the issues that are critical in my community. And I will tell you that I feel like very proud because we've fared well in the budget. We got money in the district. The senator and I worked hard to get UC Merced and Merced College $100 million to build student housing. We know how affordable housing for students is one of the biggest barriers for them to continue their higher education. And so this $100 million will help us build close to 600 units of affordable housing for community college students in the pipeline to go to UC Merced. Which is amazing and in a great way. We should be seeing that get built by 2025. So that was a big win for Merced. On top of that, I mentioned the community of Planada in Merced County. Mm-hmm. They were underwater for several days, and there's still a lot of, repairs that homeowners and renters need in their houses because it's taken so long to dry the wood and all that. So many of them didn't qualify for federal FEMA dollars. And even if they qualified, I think they qualified maximum up to $38,000, which is not a lot when you think about it. When you think about all the cost of buying a vehicle, many folks lost vehicles. Buying a new vehicle, getting your house completely repaired, taking off the sheetrock and putting all new sheetrock in there. And then you have to replace everything, right? All of your furniture and all of your belongings. And so we were able to secure $20 million to help the families to at least get to some level of full recovery in that community. And so that is really exciting that we're able to do that. And then, a couple of the other things that we received in the budget that we're able close to a little bit over $20 million for different projects in my district. A lot of these rural communities don't have the extra general fund dollars to build public facilities. And so when you go visit, communities like Firebaugh, Mendota, Kerman, even some of the unincorporated communities, they don't have those dollars. And so we were able to secure monies for a fire station, for a police station. There's one community that needs a community center. Right now with the heat, they don't have a place where the seniors can go to a cooling center and get maybe some senior hot meals. A lot of them are farm workers. And so we're able to secure monies for the city of Mendota, which is a very farm worker community. And they will have their first community center be built with some of the monies that we were able to secure in this budget. So we secured.
You did great.
Really good. Yeah, I did really well. Plus on top, the stuff that we worked on the hospital, not just for Madera, but for hospitals across the state. I was proud to kind of champion and lead on that issue to help save hospitals that are at the brink. And so there was $150 million that I talked about earlier that we were able to secure in the previous fiscal year. And then in this current budget, they included another $150 million, making it a pot of $300 million to save, hospitals and then help Madera reopen.
Amazing.
Yeah.
So you're a freshman legislator. It doesn't seem like it. It seems like, you've been here for a couple of years, how effective you've been, especially with the budget. Kind of what do you take that to? Your experience up here in Sacramento, your years as a council member? Kind of seems like you're ahead of your peers here.
I think a combination of, all of those things, spending a little bit of time here, recognizing how there's opportunities in the budget when
Right.
you act early and you're strategic about it. And then, it does help. I will say that I'm a target. And so, they recognize that because of that my district and there's significant needs in my district, that if we can have some wins, that will be helpful.
Interesting.
But also, working as a council member, I was always very involved with our budget when I was a council, because I recognize that's where you can, get things and address issues that impact, the neighborhoods that you represent.
Right. That's fascinating. Now you've mentioned a couple times you are a target.
Yeah.
You won your election by how many votes?
Close to 2,500 votes.
Right. Which would normally we'd be like, wow, that's really close. Except we had like 5 of the closest votes ever.
Exactly.
So like, you're not, quite there. I kind of noticed that you're wearing a purple jacket, right? And your district is what they call a purple district, right? It's split kind of between Republican and Democrat. Kind of what is the split there, and kind of what is the mood of your district politically?
There is actually a 14-point advantage with Democrats. But I think what happened in this last cycle and what happens usually in non-presidential years is that the turnout is pretty low. And my district is also a Latino district. It's a new Latino district. When we look at the population, it's over 60% of the people that live in my district are Latino. 51% are actual voters.
Wow.
And so when you look at the last elections turnout, it was only 28%.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's what makes the race very close. But, what we've been able to do in the last 7 months since being elected is we've been very active. And, I've really taken my job very seriously about showing up to the community and doing the work here in Sacramento on behalf of, what my community wants and what I heard during the election cycle. And when I do, my visits, I've continued to have coffee meetings throughout the district, round tables to hear directly. That's how we were able to get a list of all the budget requests that we made. It is really coming from the ask of, the needs that exist in our district. And so I feel, confident that in this next cycle, we'll do better. We'll have a better turnout,
right,
given that it's a presidential year. But yeah, the district is a little bit different. We're not, when you look at even the Democrats in my district, they're not Bay Area Democrats, and they're not,
right.
So we're different. We are preoccupied with a lot of the bread and butter. We're pro law enforcement. People appreciate, public safety in my district in ways that other, areas represented by Democrats maybe don't do.
Yeah. And I think, the biggest area we saw that this year was the discussion around fentanyl.
Yeah.
And so we had a lot of members, especially from kind of your area of California, Democratic members introducing fentanyl bills because it's a
I had
big
one
issue,
of them. I
right?
had one of them.
Yeah.
AB 675.
So what happened to it? What did it do and what happened to it?
So AB 675 would essentially just clear current statute and include fentanyl as one of the controlled substance that would be, illegal to have. We know how deadly it is.
So there's a list of controlled substances in the law.
Yep.
And that says these are illegal.
Yeah, these
and
are
fentanyl
illegal.
is not one of them.
And fentanyl was not included. And so we wanted to include it to clarify that if you had that and you had a loaded firearm, that it would be a crime. And so, we thought it was a no-brainer, right?
Yeah.
Fentanyl is likely to kill someone 50 times more than some of the other controlled substances, right? And in a small amount. There was, as you remember, a big debate about the bills being held up. And then finally, the chair decided to have a hearing, I think towards the end of, the deadline for policy committees. My bill was one of the few bills that got out. However, it ended up getting held up in appropriations.
Really?
I haven't given up on it yet, but there's still,
Did any of the fentanyl bills get out of
there was a couple. There was, I believe the one that got voted out of the floor was via PUDUAS, is if you had 1 kilo of fentanyl.
2.2 pounds of fentanyl. Okay.
So, know, which that should be a no-brainer either, right? I don't know where it's at in the Senate, but I think his is the only one that was, anything that would essentially create an enhancement. Everything else was a task force for fentanyl, I think by Assemblywoman Jessamine Baines, and some Narcan legislation.
So what's the pushback? What is the other side of the argument? What are most people missing here about like why are these bills being held?
That the data of essentially, I guess, punishing folks it doesn't show that it addresses it will address a long-term issue. I don't know. That's kind of what we heard,
right.
That sentencing enhancements wouldn't really address the fentanyl crisis that we.
It's kind of interesting. So like your bill was held on suspense, right?
Mm-hmm.
And kind of like the unwritten rule of suspense is like you never know why or what happened.
Yeah, they never tell you.
Did you try to figure it out, or did you get any idea of why it was held, or what did you do?
No. I figured the powers to be decided.
Yeah.
Decided. Yeah, unfortunately. But, I think that we do as a state have to figure out what we're going to do comprehensively. Yes, we need to look at criminalizing some of the things that are happening. We have to make sure that communities across the board also have accessible drug treatment, facilities so folks can get treatment. And that, once people also get out of prison, there's, that there's true rehabilitation happening so that when people return back to society, they are back to some level of normalcy and being, positive contributors to communities. Because no one wants someone to get out to, commit crime or come back to your neighborhood and commit crime again.
Right.
We should all want people to come out better than what they went in. And so, yeah, but there's a lot of work to be done in that space.
Yeah, for a long time.
For a long time.
Maybe one day we'll figure it out. So, we heard a couple about your bill that didn't go anywhere. What about, you've had some bills move, though? I think you've had a couple signed, too. Is that right?
So I had one sign. The one that I introduced, 412, became AB 112. It became a budget trailer bill for last fiscal year, the $150 million. It was, it created a...
Did you frame it, your first bill?
And I have a pen too that was used to sign. No, but that one creates the distress hospital loan program. So I'm very proud of that, in my first 150 days, who gets their first bill signed so quick? So it was pretty awesome. Other bills that are moving along the way, I mentioned some of the floodwater bill that we have. We have another bill that would help transitional kindergarten to the workforce, essentially incentivize through grants for some higher educational institutions to create these programs to train these TK educators, essentially. So that's still moving through the process. We have also a couple different veteran bills. One in particular for educational benefits. The income cap is too low now with cost of living and everything kind of shifting up. We're trying to make some adjustments so that it actually makes sense and families can qualify. So that's also moving through the process. And we're also looking at some nursing programs. One of the issues that impacted my hospital or the hospital closure was the fact that we had 40% of the nurses in the hospital as travelers. So you can imagine many of these nurses or, the company that hired them, they were charging about $250 an hour. So that helped really break the bank there. And so we're trying to address, looking at some of the existing programs and where we can make some improvements to address some of the shortage issues that we have. So those are just some of the things that I'm working on.
So what committees are you on right now? And is that going to change pretty soon?
So I am chair of military and vets. I'm on insurance, banking and finance, and agriculture. So I anticipate some changes. I believe that the speaker will be making an announcement today. Today, this afternoon. So, but yeah, no.
Dun, dun, dun.
I know. Dun, dun, dun.
Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for coming on and spend some time with us. I know you got a lot of work to do. We got the
Yeah.
sandwich days here, no days off for
I
you.
know,
So I
no
hope you
days
have
off.
a good 4th of July and
Thank you.
have a good appearance in the parades.
Awesome.
What are you going to wear? Do you have it figured out? You got
Oh
your
my
red, white, and
God.
blue.
I'm
You
going to
got a
have to
red
wear
blazer.
something very light because it's going to be
Hot.
101 degrees. So yeah.
No.
But yeah, sticking to the red, white, and
we'll
blue.
be checking your social, see how you do. All
Awesome.
right. Thanks, Esmeralda.
Take care.
All
Thank you
right.
for having me.
Thanks.